right. Can everybody hear me? All right, awesome. It's 5:30 and we have a quorum and everyone's present. So I think we can start this Monday, October 6th, 2025 meeting of the City of Madison Plan Commission. And let's start with Director Tuttle and the roll call. Thanks.
Okay, good evening. Alder Field?
Here.
Alder Glenn?
Here.
Alder Ugair?
Here.
Commissioner Bazine?
Here.
Commissioner Heck?
Here.
Commissioner McCahill?
Here.
Commissioner Wisniewski?
Present.
Chair Gnom?
Here.
Okay.
All good. And I think before we begin, we'll get some information from Tech Facilitator Jesse Poole.
All right, welcome to our virtual Plan Commission meeting. If you lose your connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking the link or calling the number in your original email. Members, if you are able, please activate your video and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you are able, please activate your video when you are speaking. Panelists will use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak or ask questions, or request a roll call vote. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. Members of the public, let's try that again. Members of the public who have registered to speak, the name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. The clerk will tell you when your time is up. After speaking, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the committee, send it to the email listed in today's agenda. Chair, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Jesse. We will start with our first item on the agenda, which is time for public comment for items not on the formal agenda. Megan, do we have any registrants for item 1?
We do not have anybody registered for this, Chair.
Okay. All right. We will move to disclosures and recusals. Members of the Plan Commission should make any required disclosures or recusals under the city's ethics code. Do any commissioners have disclosures or recusals related to tonight's agenda? All right, hearing none, we will go to time for review and approval of the minutes of our September 15th, 2025 regular meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes for our last meeting as shared in our agenda and shared with the commission previously? All right, could I ask for a motion and a second to approve the September 15th meeting minutes? Alder Glenn, thank you. Commissioner Wisniewski, thank you. Any discussion on the motion? And seeing no raised hands, is there any objection to unanimous approval for the last meeting's minutes? And seeing no raised hands, we will record the motion as passed unanimously. So welcome everybody. We've had a little bit of a longer break, so it's good to see everyone. Just to bring our schedule of meetings to top of mind. Our next regular meeting is 2 weeks from tonight on Monday, October 20th. And then in November, we have meetings on November 3rd and 17th. And all of those are virtual meetings at 5:30. But before we get back to that, we also have our roughly quarterly special in-person meeting next Thursday, October 16th at 5 p.m. And that will be in room 215 of the Madison Municipal Building at 215 Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard. And I think Megan will talk about the agenda a little bit when we get to her report, but just for planning, I think it might be a little bit of a longer meeting. So maybe even up to 7:30, 8 o'clock before we are done, because we do have a robust agenda. So I'm looking forward to that and looking forward to the time together in person. So we will then go to our new business, and we will start with our consent agenda. It's been the custom of the Plan Commission to remove from the agenda Those items on which staff members believe an application has been sufficiently reviewed to support approval with all of the conditions placed upon it by the various city departments and in which the applicant accepts those conditions, and there are no individuals who've registered to speak in opposition to those items. The items proposed for consent agenda tonight are on the screen before you, and those are items listed on our agenda as item 2, 4, and 5. And those would be items for approval on the consent agenda. And then items to be, and then there are 2 items on the consent agenda for referral to our next meeting at the request of the applicant. And those are items 10 and 11. So of those items before us, are there any requests for separation for those items? Or are we comfortable having those on consent? All right. If not, we'll read the items into the record. And we'll go first with the items to be approved on the consent agenda. First is item 2, Legistar 89718, creating section 28.022-00728 of the Madison General Ordinances to change the zoning of property located at 702 North Midvale Boulevard and 401 North Seago Road from PD GDP, Plan Development, General Development Plan District, to PD SIP, Plan Development Specific Implementation Plan District. And that property is in Alder District 11. Item 4 for consent is Legistar 89232, relating to 1601 North Sherman Avenue / 1610 Ruskin Street in Alder District 12. And this is consideration of a conditional use in the traditional residential consistent 4 TRC4 district for a school, public or private, and consideration of a conditional use in the TRC4 district for a building or structure exceeding 10,000 square feet in floor area, all to allow construction of a new public school building to replace the existing school building known as Sherman Middle School and Shabazz City High School. And then item 5 is related. That's Legistar 89233. And that is to approve a certified survey map of property owned by the Madison Metropolitan School District located at 1601 North Sherman Avenue and 1610 Ruskin Street in Alder District 12. So those 3 items are on the consent agenda. I will open the public hearing and close the public hearing for those 3 items and move to a vote. If I could ask for a motion and a second for the consent agenda for approval. Alder Uguer, thank you. Commissioner Hecht, thank you. Any objection to unanimous approval for these consent items? Seeing none, we'll record the consent approval agenda as passed unanimously. We also have 2 items on our agenda for referral that we would cover on a consent agenda. The first is item 10, Legistar 89762, and this is at 120 through 126 North Orchard Street and 1313 Randall Court and 1314 Randall Court, all in Alder District 8. This item is consideration of a conditional use in the traditional residential urban 2 TRU2 district for a multifamily dwelling with between 37 and 60 units, consideration of a conditional use in the TRU2 district for a building exceeding 6 stories and 78 feet in height, and consideration of a conditional use for parking reduction of more than 20 automobile spaces and 25% or more of the required parking, all to allow construction of an 8-story, 48-unit apartment building. This is also included in the referral agenda is item 11, Legistar 89776, which will involve approving a certified survey map of property owned by Four Lakes Properties LLC and Dayton Orchard LLC, located at 120 through 126 North Orchard Street, 1313 and 1314 Randall Court, and 1309 through 1311 West Dayton Street in District 8. I think we don't require a public hearing for referral to the next meeting, so I would ask for a motion and a second to refer those two items to our next meeting on October 20th. Thanks, Alder Ugier, for the motion. Thanks, Commissioner Heck, for the second. Is there any objection to unanimous approval for this referral consent agenda? And seeing none, we'll record that those referral items as passed unanimously. That will take us back into our regular agenda, and we will go to item 3. This is Legistar 89766, approving the final plat of the Ramish Farm development on land generally addressed as 4000 through 4150 Packers Avenue in Alder District 18. So we will start with a planning staff presentation on this item. I see we have Planner Punt with us. Welcome, Colin.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So the proposal before the Plan Commission now is for the first phase of the Ramish Farm development subdivision. This calls for 20.8 acres of the approximately 64-acre preliminary plat to be platted with 4 lots for multifamily residential zoning and 2 lots in commercial mixed-use zoning. The zoning districts are TRU1 and CCT, as well as 1 outlot to be dedicated to the public for stormwater management. The other 43 acres on the site will be will necessitate future final plat phases that will come before the Plan Commission at a later date. The applicant identified the intended phase 1 consisting of these lots. They are lots 1 through 5, 29, and outlot 1 in the preliminary plat. They will be they identified those during the consideration of the preliminary plat, which was approved by Common Council on September 6, 2022. As I said, the submitted plat only covers this easternmost portion. Future final plats will be required for the other 2/3 of the property. I also want to note that the state subdivision statute, chapter 236, requires that a final plat be approved or rejected with stated reasons within 60 days of submittal. This application was submitted on August 25, so Common Council must act on it by October 25. The subdivision statute also further requires that final plats conform substantially to the preliminary plat as it is approved, including any of the conditions of approval, and as well as to local plans and ordinances. And as long as it does those things, it is entitled to approval. I am happy to answer any questions after the public hearing.
Thanks, Colin. We do have registrants for this item, so I'll open our public hearing. And we will, as usual, follow our 3-minute rule for comments from our registrants. Megan, will you help lead us through our group of registrants?
Sure, Chair. Our first speaker is Joel Oliver, representing Halo Ventures, registered in support and wishing to speak.
Welcome, Joel.
Hi, good evening. Super excited to be here tonight. We've been working on this project for 6.5 years now. The last 3 years, we've been working to actually address one of the conditions of the preliminary plat approval, which was the removal of a height restriction from the 1940s to conform to the county-wide height restriction, which we are very happy to have been able to navigate that. Our original intention was to submit the final plat for the entire site at once, but the new surveying work just took longer for the surveyor than expected. So we anticipate that the balance of the final platting for the rest of the site will be submitted, eminently by the end of the year, and will also be the same as the preliminary plat. So happy to be here, happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
Thanks, Joel.
Okay, the next speaker is Linda Leonards of Madison, registered in opposition and wishing to speak.
All right. Jesse, does Linda need to unmute herself? Is that?
Yep.
Okay.
There, Linda, yep. There we go.
Hi.
All right. Welcome.
Council. Thank you. Council eventually approved the preliminary plat of 63.3 acres due to changes made by the then subdivider, adding the agricultural land, an expanded park school forest, and a commitment to sound mitigation. Phase 1, which is being platted, is only about a third of the site and does not address any of these commitments. Rather, it just covers the money-making section of the preliminary plat. And the proposed condition of approval here is to plat the remaining 43 acres of an outlot. That essentially becomes the plat and requires a new preliminary plat or a CSM. If there should end up being a different developer for the single family and small multifamily, it's questionable whether anybody will give up a quarter of the land. And if it's submitted like this, I think there is a real question whether the basis for the council's approval will come to be realized, or perhaps not realized at some far off future date. Mr. Oliver just said that they plan on submitting the rest of the plat by the end of the year. And I don't see any reason why this needs to be approved then at this point in time. The Plan Commission, can allow them more than the 3-year period to submit a final plat. And if you do this, then we could have the whole plat at the same time and know that the agricultural land and the park school forest land will be on the plat and that there will be a dedication. And if not, why not require that those two plots of land be platted? It isn't all that difficult. It's not all that intricate stuff about where the houses are going to go and how wide everything is. And those should be included on this so we can be sure that the council's reasons for approving the preliminary plat are actually going to be implemented. So, I guess that's primarily it. So thank you.
Thanks, Linda.
Okay, our last speaker on this item is Marcia Cannon of District 18, registered in opposition and wishing to speak.
I sent Colin some slides. Okay.
Yep. Welcome, Marcia.
Okay. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yep.
Good. On September 6, 2022, Joel Oliver enthusiastically presented the 4th version of the Ramish Farm Development Preliminary Plat with no phasing plan. It included, go to the next slide, please. Some very positive features: 3.5 acres of school forest, 8 acres of urban agriculture, an 1.5 acres of green space by a big apartment building. Townhomes moved from Sherman Avenue over to the northern boundary. A written commitment on sound mitigation and commercial opportunities. It was, I mean, a lot of people worked very hard on this, including Green Street. There was no phase plan that I saw when this was approved. There was no phasing plan. Now it's coming back to us with a partial plan. Next slide, please. It's covering just the southeast corner of the property. It's talking about commercial and I expect apartment buildings. Now, how are we to know without formal platting that this will be the only development that Green Street does? They say they want to come back at the end of the year, but we don't know that. There are people involved that have been around this. I was surprised to hear 6.5 years. Lofer was involved with the first plant that Marty Rifkin put up way back in 2020. The point is, this situation is very disappointing. I understand the rules required that there be a plan involved if you're going to do phases when it was first approved. That was not included as far as I know. I want to know why this is being recommended for approval as a final plat. If this at 20 acres is the final plat, is this the only acreage available for the developers to purchase? What is going on with that 43 unplatted acres? This is, as I say, very disappointing. It is unacceptable. It deserves further scrutiny. City staff have spent years on this project with no return. And I think the developers need to get their act together and put out something that is transparent and understandable. Thank you.
Thanks, Marcia.
Okay, those are all of our registrants, Chair.
Thanks, Megan. I would ask the commissioners if we have any questions for any of the residents. All right. If there are no questions for the registrants at this time, we'll close the public hearing and we'll now have time for questions for staff. Commissioner Heck, thanks.
Thank you. Colin, just a couple clarifying questions about what we heard in public comment with regard to phasing needed to be pre-approved if there is going to be phasing for a final plat. I guess first I'll ask that's my first question.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Heck. There was phasing that was indicated by the applicant in the original submittal from 2022 in their letter of intent. I will just read it here. Project schedule, phase 1 construction is anticipated April 23 to April 24 and consists of lots 1 through 5, 29, and outlot 1, future to follow. And then I did indicate the same in the staff report for the 2022 preliminary plat. The applicant's intended phase 1 consists of lots 1 through 5, 29, and lot 1. So the phasing was, indicated at that time. Their state statute and the city's subdivision ordinance do allow portions of a plat to come in as a final plat and enable phasing. So from our perspective and our read of the statutes and the city ordinances, the phasing here is consistent.
Okay, thanks. And then a second question, excuse me, related to the proposed outlot. My understanding is that the original preliminary plat would still apply to those sections, but I heard maybe they would need to redo that preliminary plat for those other sections that are proposed for becoming an outlot. Is that the case?
No, sorry. I thought I had muted myself. No, the conditions of approval, and I need to bring them back up. Oh dear. Apologies. Okay. The conditions of approval from the City Engineering Division mapping section state that the areas that are originally shown on the submitted final plat as unplatted be created as an outlot with a note on the face of the plat stating that further development be prohibited until a new final plat for that area is approved in substantial conformance with the preliminary plat, which had been approved in 2022. So what it's really doing is reserving that area for future final plats and ensuring that those final plats are in conformance with the approved preliminary plat.
Okay, and if by chance some portion of that outlot were to be sold to a different developer, they would still be bound by the originally approved plats, correct?
Yes. So either all of that would have to be platted and developed in accordance with what was approved in the preliminary plat, or a new preliminary plat would have to be reviewed and approved and recorded. And that would come back to, we start the process over again, come back to the Plan Commission, go to Common Council. So the review would, we'd have a totally new review, and I would anticipate many of the same issues that were considered in the original preliminary plat would be discussed again.
Okay, thanks. Those are my questions.
Thanks. Alder Glenn.
Mine weren't going to be as eloquently put like Patrick's, but they kind of were along the same thing. However, I am wondering if Joel, I know you had asked if we had any questions for the speakers. I'm wondering if Joel is still here, if I could ask him a question that I think could.
Yeah, I think we would reopen our, I'm going to look to see if Megan's nodding at me. We would reopen. Yeah, we'll reopen the public hearing for purposes of bringing those questions in. So the public hearing is going to be reopened right now. And Alder, you can ask your question.
Thank you. Hi, Joel.
Hello.
Question along with what Marcia. So just let me say, and I know all of us as commissioners and alders know this, that when these projects, every now and then you get one of those projects that is very important to a neighborhood. And Joel, I know you are aware of this much longer than I am. I was just a citizen in some of the rooms during Ramish. Can you answer, do you have any answers to some of Marcia's concerns or questions that you could that she brought up, or did you hear her questions and concerns?
Yeah,
the dividing. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the main thing I'd say is, unfortunately, there's, in general, not specific to this, people sometimes think that there's nefarious reasons for the way things happen and timing. And the reality is the first plat that was submitted today has, I believe it's 6 parcels, and the second phase on the western side has north of 80 parcels, and the civil engineer and the surveyors have to do all of those lines, and that line work takes much longer than we expected, hence why our original expectation, and Colin knows this because he was part of the conversations with the firm that did the civil engineering and platting work, our goal was to get it all submitted, and they just ran out of time. So when we realized we were not going to have time, the eastern portion is what had the 3-year window that we were up against. that we wanted to make sure we got submitted to keep the process moving. The reality is we've spent the last 3.5 years dealing with Dane County with this height restriction that the airport supported. And we had to deal all the way from the federal level down to the local level to remove a height restriction that was irrelevant. So we would love to have started this 3 years ago, but that wasn't possible while that height restriction was in place and was part of the city's requirements. So that's something we had to do. And we have spent an exorbitant amount of time and money and energy to get to this point. And in good faith, the preliminary plat that was approved is identical to the final plat that's being presented today. So I don't know what we could do in better good faith than that. We've been in lockstep with the city staff, elected officials, this entire process, and have been completely transparent and very communicative. And we're very excited to continue moving forward.
Thank you. I'm one of those people that thought all y'all were doing nefarious stuff. That's why I ran to Gallagher. Just saying. Thanks very much for answering that. And so what are you, with the other ones, is there any, and I know that it can't be, but is there any on your part, ideas of not doing exactly what was already in the final plat? Or I know that land for the school was in the original one. Any changes you see coming down the road or alterations that you might try to change that would feel nefarious?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you anecdotally and constructively. Anecdotally, no. Our intention is to do exactly what was in the final plat for the western side. And more practically speaking, that is the direction that we have given to the firm, the engineering firm that is preparing the final plat, is match the preliminary plat identically. Do not change anything. So that is the direction we have given them.
Thank you very much, Joel. Thank you. I'm done. I wanted to ask just one more thing to Colin then.
Before you do that, let's close the public hearing and then we'll pivot back to questions for staff. Thanks.
Hi, Colin.
Hi.
Reading through the report and what's been asked, it doesn't sound like, I mean, everybody feels like it's putting us back on track of what's needed. And so earlier you had said about it not being approved, it has to be approved by then. So it would have to get improved in this meeting in order for it to meet the deadline of the council. Is that basically what you were saying?
Yes. So if the council does not act on it within 60 days, it gets approved, and it gets approved as is. So if it's the city's wish to approve it with the conditions that staff have recommended, then the Plan Commission and the Common Council would need to act on it at this meeting and then the council's meeting.
Thank you. That's all.
Thanks, Alderman. Other questions for staff on this item? Alder Figueroa Cole, welcome.
Thank you. Colin, I'm sorry, I want to just make sure that I understood that clearly. When you say the plan will be accepted, means the plan that the developer proposed will be accepted with no changes if it doesn't make it to council by the deadline?
Yes.
Okay.
So for subdivisions, if they are not approved by the local council, they can be recorded.
Okay, thank you. I don't think I heard that one before, so thanks.
Thanks. All right, Commissioner Heck.
Sorry, just one quick clarifying question on that, Colin. The Plan Commission and the council could also choose to deny those within 60 days also, and that would prevent it from being immediately approved too, right?
Yes. Yep. Okay. And you would obviously have to make all of the appropriate findings, but you could deny it.
Okay, thank you.
All right. are we ready to talk about a motion on this one? Are there other thoughts or comments people have? Alder Glenn. Thanks.
One more question, Colin. I think also a clarifying. You said with the conditions. Will you talk about that with the conditions of the report?
Yeah. So the list of conditions of recommended conditions at the end of the report, I think there's 60 some of them. Those would, if the Plan Commission recommended approval, the Common Council approved of the final plat, the applicant would have to meet all of those conditions. If the council does not make any action at all before the 60 days, then the applicant is able to record the plat as it is right now. So if the Plan Commission and the Common Council want to see the changes that staff have recommended as conditions of approval, they would have to, do some sort of action with the plat.
Thank you. I was asking more clarifying because I was going to make a motion to approve and I was trying to figure out the language behind it. When you said with the conditions, what do I have to read out loud? So that. So would this just be a move to council to approve?
I think it would. Yep. Go ahead.
It's a recommendation to the council for approval. And I think to your point just now about conditions, you could say with the conditions indicated in the staff report.
Okay, I move to refer to the council to approve with the conditions listed in the staff report.
Thanks, Alder Glenn. Commissioner Heck, second. Thank you. So we have a motion to recommend approval and with conditions subject to conditions in the staff report, and a second. Is there any additional discussion on the motion? All right. If there's no further discussion, I'll call the motion to a vote and ask if there's any objection to unanimous approval for this item. And seeing none, we'll record it as passed unanimously. Thanks for the good discussion and Colin, the helpful responses to the questions that were presented. So appreciate that. All right, we will next move to items 6 and 7 on our agenda, which are related, and we will do the public hearing for those together. But we'll do separate findings and motions for the two items. Item 6 is Legistar 89452. This relates to 305 North Francis Street and 533 Conklin Place in Alder District 2. And this is consideration of a conditional use in the UMX Urban Mixed Use District for a new building with greater than 6 stories, and consideration of a conditional use in the UMX district for outdoor recreation to allow construction of a 16-story mixed-use building with 2,800 square feet of commercial space and 387 apartments. Item 7 is Legistar 89481, and this would be approval of a certified survey map for property owned by Zire Building Company, located at 305 North Francis Street and 533 Conklin Place in Alder District 2. So we will start with a presentation from planning staff. Colin, I think you're up. I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you. So as Chair Gnam noted, before the Planning Commission now is a number of conditional uses to construct a 16-story, 387-unit mixed-use building, as well as a certified survey map to create a single lot for the new building. The proposed building is, as I said, 16 stories in an area area designated in the zoning code and downtown plan for 12 stories. The applicant proposes 16 stories within the maximum 12-story height, which will be accomplished through the recording of a land use restriction agreement, a LURA, to restrict a portion of the units in those additional floors to affordable rents in a manner that's been utilized to set aside affordable units in other multifamily residential buildings that are typically student-oriented in the downtown and campus area. I will note for the Plan Commission that there are 2 addenda that followed this staff report. The first addendum laid out the condition for the LURA a little bit more clearly. That LURA has not yet been, a resolution for that LURA has not yet been introduced. So that just clarifies the requirement for the LURA in order for a building of 16 stories to be approved in this location. The second addendum it concerns either a dedication or an easement for sidewalks and terraces along both West Johnson and North Francis Street. In order to accommodate the landscaping planters as shown on the plans, the typical 1 foot maintenance strip, which is dedicated or provided as an easement behind the sidewalk on the property, the private property side of the sidewalk, is requested to be reduced in width from 1 foot to 1/2 foot. The city engineering division and traffic engineering division staff have reviewed that and have recommended an updated condition as updated conditions as seen in that addendum. As you will note, there are 2 sets of changes to those conditions, one for the land use, the conditional use request, and one for the certified survey map. If I believe that covers everything that I have right now. And as always, I'm happy to answer questions after the hearing.
Thanks, Colin. We will now open the public hearing on this item. And so we do have registrants. Megan, if you would lead us through that.
Okay, we're first going to hear from a number of members from the applicant team. I believe Brian Munson, Jeff Zalisco, and Doug Titchener have requested to pool their time for a total of 9 minutes. So we'll hear from them first.
All right.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. My name is Brian Munson, Principal Urban Designer with Vanderwall & Associates here in Madison. Here again on behalf of Core Spaces on another exciting student housing project here just off of campus. So tonight we're going to be talking about, as you've heard, about a 16-story, 367-unit student housing project. This project's designed to meet the standards of the urban mixed-use district that it sits. And so as a result, we're requesting conditional use approval for outdoor recreation and scale of building along with the CSM. To achieve this submittal, of course, we've been looking very closely and taking advantage of the downtown height ordinance in that this project will include 10% of the beds at a 40% discount or approximately 135 beds and will be addressed at a land use restriction agreement that will be introduced at the Common Council tomorrow night. The overall design of the building meets all the standards of the urban mixed-use district, including the overall height, and respects the capital height limit as well. So all of the height elements of the building will be below the 172 feet of the 12-story designation on this site, as well as below the capital height limit. And that includes any elevator runs or stairwells. We're very conscious to design from that. We're glad to be here tonight with a staff recommendation for approval, as well as final Urban Design Commission approval and staff level recommendation for the demolition of the existing buildings. As we said, it's an exciting project that it delivers quite a bit of student housing in a much needed location, along with vibrant streetscapes, which includes retail, amenities, bike parking, and a variety of landscape treatment around the entire site, as well as on the roof. So with that, in the interest of time, what I'll do is I will hand the baton over to Jeff Zalisco to talk through the design. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Brian. Could you please go to page 8, please? Good evening, Plan Commissioners. My name is Jeff Zalisco. I'm a senior principal with Antunovich Associates. We're architects collaborating with Core Spaces on this project. We've worked through the process with planning staff and with UDC, and I will say that it's been a great process because they really liked the building from the very beginning. They liked the materials we were using, how we created a top, a middle, and a base. However, there were some very good comments, and which is usually happens when we work with staff in UDC, the building gets better. We added more details, the layering of the horizontal elements you see. We improved and strengthened the base and the contrast to the base of the rest of the building. And in particular, they really liked us to strengthen the top of the building. And what you see in this image here really shows a strong top of this building, something you really see from a distance and then really makes it feel special. So we collaborated very closely with both of them, and I think that the building is better as a result of that. Can you go to the next page, please? That building, that photograph is something you're seeing it from a distance, but also the base of the building really is very powerful at the street. Also, it's very welcoming. We've created a really powerful entrance for the lobby that faces both towards Francis and on Johnson. So the 2-story space goes into a 2-story lobby space. Also, you see that there's plant materials and there's planters with lush, native landscaping. So we've really tried to soften up the experience around that intersection and just have provide a really wonderful feel around the perimeter building. So building doesn't just look great from distance, but also the environment down the street is also the same. So just wanted to touch a little bit about the design and the things that we've talked about and the feedback and the work that we've done with UDC and planning staff. I think with that, we're at a place where we would love to allow you to ask some questions and let us know what you think.
Okay. I'll just note that we also have a few other members of the applicant team available to answer questions. So that includes Jonathan Lilly, representing Veerbecker, and Justin Zampardi, also representing Core Spaces and Veerbecker. We did have just one other registrant, Nicholas Davies of District 15, registered in support but not wishing to speak. And that wraps up our registrant list, Chair.
Thanks, Megan. I will ask the commission if anyone has questions for our registrants as part of the public hearing. I had just a quick question, which is, I wonder if someone on the development team there, can you talk a little bit about the outdoor recreation that's makes up the conditional use and what you anticipate is going to be involved in that?
Certainly. So the design of the building includes on the roof outdoor amenity spaces for the tenants, including a pool area, grilling stations, kind of quiet nooks, and a couple different balcony areas that'll be used by residents throughout the building and available for use on a year-round basis. So anytime we do that, which is fairly typical of most student projects downtown, as well as several market rate projects in the code, that triggers a conditional use request. And so as such, that's what that covers.
Thanks. Thanks, Commissioner Bazin.
I had 2 questions. I noticed in the staff report, if I was reading it correctly, for the electrical vehicle stalls and the number of bike parking stalls, in both of those areas, it looks like the proposed were less than the required. And I was wondering if the planning team could speak to that.
Sure. So I'll speak to both. So as far as the bike parking, the intent is to meet all the bike standards. And so, for example, some of the conversations on the streetscape will require some slight adjustments just to make sure we're placing the guest parking appropriately adjacent to both retail and the lobby. But for the bike parking, the goal is absolutely to meet all of the standards. We will utilize up to 50% of the stalls as structured stalls within the building. And those are placed on the first floor, accessible to residents as they come in through the lobby, or from Conklin Place, there's direct access to a bike parking room that will serve majority of the residents. And so that's, again, consistent with many of the other student housing projects downtown, but to clarify, yes, we are meeting absolutely all the bike parking stalls. As far as the EV ready and EV installed stalls, we're working through the details of those, and we'll meet the standards required from the site plan review set. So just kind of a technical component as we move through.
Does that answer all your questions?
Yes,
Ashley?
thank you.
Thank you. Alder Glenn.
Yeah, I was looking through your management plan, and so is this Core Spaces is who the management company will be that will be managing the building?
This is Doug Titchener, available to answer questions. I work for Core Spaces and represent the developer in this behalf. Yeah, Core Campus Management is the management arm of Core Spaces. We will own and operate this building like we've done with other buildings that we've developed in Madison.
Thank you very much. That was it.
Thanks. Other questions for our registrants? If there are none, we'll close the public hearing and offer time for questions for staff on the project. Commissioner Bazine.
I was wondering if somebody on staff could help me understand. I noticed in some of the public comments, there was concern about loss of affordable housing, particularly around studios. I know this building has a 10%, 10% would be affordable housing. So I didn't necessarily know how those different numbers, like what's leaving versus what's coming, and how those, if you end up with net more or less affordable housing.
I don't know if Colin, if you want to speak to this one, or
yeah, I can try at first here. I can't say I recall exactly how many. It's about 230-ish units, I think, are in the current Saxony buildings. And I don't know at what rate those were rented at, but as I understand, they were fairly affordable compared to some of the other student-oriented units around. So I would say, it's a overall net loss of some of those more affordable units. The overall number of bedrooms that are gained on the site is obviously very much larger, and may contribute to some balancing out of the economics of supply and demand in the campus area, but can't say for sure, what impact that will have.
and ultimately, I think, Colin, please correct me if I'm wrong, that the comments that you're referring to are ones that came in just a few moments before the meeting, and were shared, referring to what we sometimes call naturally occurring affordable housing. So where the market rate housing is offered at a lower rate due to things like the age or some of the amenities of the housing. the project that is in front of you tonight would be providing some of its units in a more formal way with some income restriction using that LURA process that Colin had mentioned in his presentation of this project.
Thanks. Alderfield?
Thank you, Chair. Megan, I suspect my question is for you. I'm wondering, now that we've seen some of these projects that include LURAs for longer term affordable housing in this manner authorized through MOU, do we yet have a process for checking in on them over time and as we accumulate a larger number of these agreements, inventorying and understanding what is happening to rent that's being charged for students from students who are occupying the units?
That's a great question. And I believe this process is newer for the student housing side of this process. I know the city has been working with the university to formalize the process for both the MOUs themselves as well as for identifying renters who are eligible to rent those restricted units. And then ultimately the process of verifying and monitoring that will come through our community development division. And I think we're a little bit new in that process to have any experience with these student housing specific LURAs, but ultimately would be the group that would help us with any of the monitoring and evaluation.
Makes sense. Thank you for helping me understand that.
Alderfield? So we may be ready to consider a motion on, and I think we would start with the motion on the conditional use item 6. Alder Uguer, thanks.
Thank you, Chair. So I will move that with regard to the project at 305 North Francis Street and 533 Conklin Place, that the Plan Commission finds that the conditions or the standards for conditional use are met, and I make specific reference to the staff comments on standards 3, 4, 5, 8, and 16. That would, therefore, we approve the project subject to all of the conditions in the staff report, the initial staff report, as well as the staff report addenda.
Thanks, Alder Uguer. Alderfield, thanks for the second. Alder Uguer, any other comments on the motion?
No.
Okay. Any discussion from the commission? If not, is there any objection to unanimous approval for the motion on the table to related to approval of conditional use? All right, Anjali, I saw your hand and then it went away. So, okay, thanks, Commissioner Basine. All right, we will find the conditional use item approved unanimously. And then we would be looking for a motion on the certified survey map.
Sorry, Chair, can I just clarify? I just want to make sure for the record that that we're recording this vote correctly. And Commissioner Bazine, were you objecting to unanimous consent?
Yes, but I also don't know what standard I could use to object.
We can also just call a roll call vote if you would like that to be called.
Sure, that sounds great.
Okay. Alderfield?
Aye.
Alder Glenn?
Aye.
Alder Uguer?
Aye.
Commissioner Bazine?
No.
Commissioner Heck?
Aye.
Commissioner McCahill?
Aye.
Commissioners Sanders and Solheim are excused. Alternate Wisniewski?
Aye.
Okay. There are 6 ayes and 1 no, Chair. That motion passes.
Okay, yep, thanks very much for clarifying that. I did not mean to disenfranchise Commissioner Bazine by any stretch. Thank you. All right, now I think maybe we could move to item 7, which would be the certified survey map of the property at 305 North Francis Street, 533 Conklin Place. And this would be a recommendation to council. Alderfield.
Thank you, Chair. I'll move that the Plan Commission forwards the certified survey map of property at 305 North Francis Street and 533 Conklin Place to the Common Council with a recommendation of approval.
Thank you. Alder Glenn, thanks for the second. Any additional discussion on the certified survey map? And seeing none, I'll ask if there's any objection to unanimous approval for this item. All right, seeing none, we'll record that item as also approved unanimously. Thank you. Thanks, Colin, and Megan and the registrants for leading us through that discussion. So we will next move to items 8 and 9. And these will be considered together for public hearing purposes, so I'll read them both. Item 8 is Legistar 89479 relating to 53 Westtown Mall in Alder District 19. And this is consideration of a conditional use for a major alteration to a planned multi-use site with 40,000 square feet or more of floor area, of which 25,000 square feet or more is designated as retail, a hotel or motel, and consideration of a conditional use in the regional mixed use RMX district and transit-oriented development TOD zoning overlay for a drive-through window for a coffee shop. And then item 9 is Legistar 89482, and that would be approving a certified survey map of property owned by Madison WT Associates LLC, generally addressed as 53 Westtown Mall, and also in Alder. I think that's supposed to be Alder District 19. I think my agenda says 9, so I think it's also in Alder District 19. But Alder Ugair can confirm that for us. Thanks. So we will start with a short staff presentation.
I believe that's me again.
Yes.
And may not be super short. Apologies.
Okay, sorry.
So in this case, the applicant proposes a certified survey map to carve off a parcel immediately south of the Westtown Mall entrance from South Gammon Road, opposite Odana Road, and then constructing a 2-story, roughly 2,300 square foot coffee service building with drive-through window to be served by 2 parallel vehicle lanes. Staff believe that the proposal is consistent with many of the recommendations in the adopted plans, namely the 2-story building height at minimum, which is located along the public street and which helps shield the surface parking on site. While staff believes that the establishment of the auto-oriented use is less intensive than the development pattern envisioned in the plan recommendations, it is allowed in the adopted TOD ordinance and can comply with all applicable zoning regulations if the noted modifications in the conditions are made. Staff does not have substantial evidence to indicate that the conditional use approval standards are not met. On balance, staff believes that the development could be found to meet the underlying conditional use standards. I'll note that the UDC recommended approval of the proposal with 3 conditions. What I would say is the principal condition is that the paving should be minimized as much as possible. The applicant has begun to address this in some of the interim plans, although city agencies have not reviewed the updated site plans with reduced paving areas. But they have shown that in some interim iterations of the plans. Regarding the certified survey map, staff believes it satisfies all applicable standards for land divisions. The standards can be found met subject to the comments recommended by reviewing agencies, especially with conditions regarding the granting of a reservation for the officially mapped street. Ordinance requires immediate dedication of an officially mapped street when subdividing. However, with the recommended condition, it allows the city to delay taking ownership until it's ready. And that would be when the city believes that it's desirable to own and improve those streets as public right-of-ways when other parts of the network within the greater Westtown area can be connected. And with that, I will hand it back to you, Chair, and happy to answer any questions after the public hearing.
Thanks, Colin. We have registers for this item, so we'll open the public hearing. And Megan, if you can walk us through the list.
Okay. First, we're going to hear from Milena Oliveira, I believe is representing the applicant team.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
We can. Welcome.
Perfect. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Milena Oliveira. I am here representing the 7 Brew. So we are proposing, as it was just mentioned, a 7 Brew on the parking lot of West County Mall along South Gammon. This site plan and building layout are a result of multiple conversations we've had with staff for the last year or more. So we are really invested in hearing the city and following all guidelines, city code, and recommendations as we've always had, even for previous projects. Like it was also mentioned, we just got UDC approval on the building. And 2 of the recommendations I have outlined on slide number 5. If you jump to that, that was basically just reduce paving as much as possible. And we just did one iteration that was based on the conversation that we had on the UDC of areas that we believe are possible to reduce paving, especially on the south part of the site plan where cars are exiting. With that, we will be reducing a total of over 24% of paved area and increasing more than 20% in landscaping area for this site compared to what is currently there, which is a parking lot. So we believe we are improving this area greatly and providing a very interesting service. We do provide, this building has a walk-up window that allows pedestrians to come up to the building and order. So people who are walking by, who are using public transportation, they are very welcome to come and sit on the patio table that we have outside as well. We know this is not a very dense development, but it does provide a public gathering space, if you will. So I think that's basically what I wanted to present today. So this is the site plan, double drive-through under the covered canopy. We are proposing a one-way circulation for safety reasons. That was also discussed with staff before. And we're open to reducing paving as much as possible, as long as this doesn't affect and disturb the operations. But I'm here to answer any additional questions you might have.
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Ryan Sass, also representing the applicant team.
Chair, there's no person by that name in attendance.
Okay. So I'll just note then that we also have Eric Drazkowski registered, available to answer questions, also representing the applicant team. Our next speaker is James Gesbeck from District 1, registered in opposition and wishing to speak.
All right, can you hear me?
We can. Welcome. Thanks.
Fantastic. Yeah, I am registered in opposition, and I think that the Planning Commission should deny this request. As a preliminary matter, I noticed that staff keeps referring it to the applicant team. It's not clear to me that there actually is a valid applicant. There is no such entity in Wisconsin as Plaza Street Partners, nor Seventh Brew. In Wisconsin, if you're a foreign corporation, LLC, along the likes, you do have to actually register with the Department of Financial Institutions and able to conduct business. So if the application is granted, I would be curious as to whom the Plan Commission is granting it to. It seems granting approval to a non-existent entity would be like granting approval to Mickey Mouse. As for the conditional use standards themselves, I don't think they are met. As the staff noted, it's not a very intensive use of the property. It is drive-through. It is automobile based. This is Wisconsin we're talking about. The idea of people sitting in patio chairs at a patio table in the middle of January drinking coffee doesn't really seem to make sense. Additionally, along with that automobile focus and, towards, I think it's conditional use standard number 4, that it's not going to impede, existing uses, there's going to be a lot of cars idling there going through. This isn't a sort of establishment where you park your vehicle, turn your engine off, get your food brought out to you. Instead, what the applicant is proposing is vehicles are just going to be idling as they make a slow little circle that they think will be completed in 4 minutes. I guess I would note in Madison, there is an ordinance limiting idle time of vehicles to only 5 minutes because the city council has recognized that idling vehicles are a bad thing. So for those reasons, I would ask that the Plan Commission deny the applicant's request.
Okay, we have one other registrant on this item, Nicholas Davies of District 15, registered in opposition but not wishing to speak. Chair, you're on mute.
Thank you. Sorry. Thanks, Megan. Are there questions from the commissioners for any of our registrants tonight? Right, seeing none, I will close the public hearing and ask if there are commissioner questions. Alder Yeager, before I close the public hearing, is your question for staff or registrants?
It's a question for registrants for Vera, if you please.
Thanks. So yes, so the public hearing will remain open, and Alder Yeager, please.
Okay. The first question is just looking at the plans. That it took me a while to understand why there was a second story to this building, but it's required for the zoning. So my question, Ms. Oliveira, is there any reason for that second story other than to meet the zoning requirement?
Initially, it is based on the requirement. The prototypical building does not have all that space on the second floor, although we are using that space now that we have it for mechanical room, storage, and any support to the main kitchen.
Thank you. And one other question. This is a neighborhood that is rather dense with regard to other coffee shops of various formats, including drive-through. I'm not familiar with Seven Brew. I'm just curious from an economic standpoint, what you see the opportunity is here to get a piece of the action in a neighborhood that's already pretty dense with coffee shops.
Yeah, I understand that. Although Seven Brew is, I believe the drive is not mainly economical. Seven Brew, although it's a national brand, the brand's emphasis, they've really emphasized the importance of community and as a pillar of their mission. So they have many community-based activities, types of inclusions, and the operators are local to Wisconsin, so they are living right now in Eau Claire. So they will be very closely operating the stores. They are very involved with the community, and I think that's the difference that Seven Brew brings to the city in terms of other coffee shops. They are constantly donating to local charities and health facilities. They support many local partners in the community. They offer free drinks to police, firefighters, nurses, schools. So they're very present in the community. And I think that's more than just the economical share of this business.
Thank you. That's responsive to my question. No further questions.
Thanks, Alder Gare. Other questions for registrants? Great. We now will close the public hearing and we'll open up for questions for staff. So if Alder Gare, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I just if could have a response from staff. There are extensive comments in the staff report about meeting the standards, given that the intent of the particularly designated land use here, as well as zoning, is for significantly greater density. Could someone just speak to what would be possible on this site, given the other surrounding uses?
Alder Gare, are you asking kind of the kind of max build out?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So
within reason, given the other surrounding uses at this time.
Yep. I think in general, in the West Town area, with the plan recommendations and the zoning, on a lot of the property, a wide mix of very intense uses could be built. I think this specific site, because it is tucked in the corner right next to the entrance, does not lend itself to that same intensity of uses that you could find on one of the pad sites outside of the mall, or by redeveloping one of the parking lots. So while the zoning and the plans allow a great intensity of use and of wide variety, the actual on-the-ground restrictions of this particular site probably limit those substantially.
Thank you. That's responsive, Colin. No further questions.
Thanks, Alder Gare. Commissioner McCahill.
Thank you. So I hope I didn't misread something, but my understanding is this is in a TOD overlay district, and I didn't see anything in the report explaining precisely how those conditions, how the standards are met. And particularly, I'm wondering about entrance orientation, toward the primary street, which I'm having trouble seeing how this does that, and some of the details of standards for automobile infrastructure.
I am going to have to admit that from the perspective of the TOD overlay, zoning staff are probably more able to answer those questions than I am.
Yeah, I was just going to ask if we could put Katie Bannon on the spot, and do recognize that these types of uses can be a little tricky to navigate when we think about the sort of broader intent of the TOD overlay. So, Katie, if you'd be willing, Katie is the city zoning administrator.
Yep. Welcome, Katie. Thanks.
Commissioner McCahill, if you have specifics, I can talk very generally, but maybe there's something specific you saw in the code that was of a concern. But in this case, Gammon Road is the primary street here, and so you're not allowed to have parking, drives, drive-through window, all those sorts of, as you said, and the code calls, automobile infrastructure between the building and the street. This is able to meet that requirement. We did go, as the applicant was talking about a little bit back and forth, quite a bit about some of the site design to get them into a place that it can comply. They have a second story over 75% of the building footprint, including entirely over the drive-through window and the drive immediately adjacent to the drive-through window. They meet the 30% of the frontage, has a building with a maximum setback along Gammon Road. Those are the things I can think of offhand. But if there's something I'm missing that you wanted me to address specifically, I could do so. And maybe Colin can share the site plan if that would be helpful as well to talk through.
Probably would help. Okay, so the main entrance that we're talking about faces Gammon Road in that interpretation. And
yeah, so primary entrance has to face the street. They can't have additional entrances that face other directions.
Okay. Okay.
This will not have really an indoor component other than for staff. So it's an entrance, for staff, and then they have the walk-up window, which the code requires for all drive-throughs within the city of Madison, that there has to be a pedestrian option to access services.
And so there's also where there's a drive-through as part of the building shall have commercial residential uses allowed in the base district along the primary street frontage. So that would be okay.
Right. And in this case, that commercial use is an allowed use in the base district.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Other questions for staff? Right, if we are ready to move for a motion, we'll want to start with item 8, which is the conditional use proposal. Alder Yeager.
I'll try. I move that the Plan Commission finds the standards for conditional use are met, and I note in particular staff comments with regard to standards 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8, and that the Commission approve the conditional use permit subject to all of the conditions in the staff report.
Thanks, Alder Yeager. Alder Glenn? Is that second for the motion? Thank you. Any additional discussion from Alder Field. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just briefly, I wanted to share that I plan to vote for this motion, even though I find this not a particularly exciting land use and doesn't fit super well with the vision of a lot of people for the future of this part of our city and our vision for how it'll grow. But I recognize that it's kind of hard to prevent something like this without focusing on just the building form, which is what the TOD ordinance primarily does at this point. And, you know, as we see in this proposal, those rules can be designed around. We've struggled with this before. This body has at least twice since I've been a member, and have gone back to tweak some of the rules around drive-throughs, and I suspect may do so again as we try to strike something resembling a balance that allows a flexible district and encourages as wise of a land use as possible. And that's just hard to do, it turns out. But I wanted to at least share that that's kind of how I see this proposal. Again, I plan to vote for the motion, finding that the standards are met, as evidenced by the rationale analysis and staff report, where there is not substantial evidence to substantiate denial. Thank you.
Thanks, Alderfield. Alder Uguer.
I'll just say I'm going to vote for it too, somewhat reluctantly, because it's not what we hope will happen in that area in the very long run. But I am persuaded, in particular, by the comments we just heard from staff that we're inserting this particular use in a part of West Town where it's difficult to contemplate what else could be done there anytime in the foreseeable future, given the surrounding developments. And that's an aspect that's persuasive with me.
Thanks, Alder Uguer. Commissioner McCahill?
I won't be supporting this. I think I will play the role of standing up for the TOD overlay district. I think, as my question suggested, everything is a little bit open to interpretation, but I think it's a tough case to make that the main entrance faces the primary street. There is an entrance facing a street, but looking at these site plans, I think very few people would consider that the main entrance or Gammon Road as the major street accessing the site.
Thanks. Commissioner Wisniewski.
I will not be supporting this project. Again, like Commissioner McCahill, I think that it fails to meet the TOD requirements. If the main entrance allowed people to come in that can walk up to a counter inside, it might be a different story, but I see this as completely auto-oriented, which flies in the face of TOD. I also don't see where it fits any of the comprehensive plan or West Town plan, and I will not be supporting it.
Thanks, Commissioner Wisniewski. I think we're ready to call the vote, and I think we will based on the comments, we should do a roll call vote.
Okay, so as we move into the vote on this, based on our attendance this evening, we do need 5 votes to pass any motion. Alder Field?
Aye.
Alder Glenn?
Aye.
Commissioner Bazine?
Yes.
Alder Uguer?
Aye.
Commissioner Heck?
Aye.
Commissioner McCahill?
No.
Commissioner Sanders and Solheim are excused. Alternate Wisniewski?
Oh.
All right, we do have 5 votes in favor and 2 votes opposed. That means the motion passed.
Thanks, Megan. Thanks, everyone. We do need to take up item 9, which is the certified survey map associated with this project. And I'd be, if there are questions for staff, we can take those, but I'd be looking for a motion to make a recommendation to council whether to approve the CSM or not. Alderfield, thanks.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just finding the right spot on my agenda. Okay, so I move that the Plan Commission approves the certified survey map of property at 53 West Town Mall and forwards it to the Common Council with a recommendation for approval.
Thank you. Alder Uguer, it's like a second. Thank you. Any further discussion on this CSM? All right. I think we will also do a roll call on this item, if that's amenable to everyone. Megan, if you could do that.
Okay.
Through that.
Alderfield?
Aye.
Alder Glenn?
Aye.
Alder Uguer?
Aye.
Commissioner Bazine?
Yes.
Commissioner Heck?
Aye.
Commissioner McCahill?
Aye.
Commissioner Sanders and Solheim are excused. Alternate Wisniewski?
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous, Chair.
All right, thank you. All right, we will move now to item 12 on our agenda for tonight. And we have 4 zoning text amendments on the agenda. The first 3, we will start with the staff presentation covering all 3. And we do have Administrator Bannon, Administrator Tucker, and traffic engineer. Oh, we don't have our traffic engineer. We have Administrator Bannon and Administrator Tucker here to help us through the zoning text amendments. So I will, I'm going to read the text of the items 12, 13, and 14, and then we'll have the staff presentation. So item 12 is Legistar 89916. This is a substitute amending several sections of Chapter 28 to reduce minimum lot width and lot area within certain zoning districts and to reduce the rear setback for alley-loaded one-story attached garages. We also have item 13 is Legistar 89917, amending various sections of Chapter 28 to update the existing step-down rules for larger buildings when adjacent to a residential district. And item 14 is Legistar 89918, amending sections within Chapter 28 to allow detached accessory dwelling units to have 2 units and not be included in the maximum permitted use accessory structure size. And I also neglected to identify zoning officer Moskowitz, who is actually going to do the staff presentation, I think. So welcome, Jacob. Thank you.
Oh, thanks. It's good to see you all. Thank you, Chair. So yeah, I just have a short presentation here. Let me just real quick share my screen here. All right. So as the chair mentioned, we have 3 zoning text amendments here. There's actually 4, but this presentation will be about the first 3 that are coming before you tonight. And so the chair did a great job of summarizing them, so I won't repeat what she said, but basically the Legistar files are up here if you have any further questions or want to check those out. So the first change that we have is adjustments to lot area, lot width, and some rear yard setback minimum changes. This slide that's up here now is just an example of one of the changes in the SRC1, but there are changes across a wide variety of primarily our lower intensity residential zoning districts. And the reason for that is to provide some additional flexibility, especially for subdivision, new subdivisions, and then also, subdividing existing lots to allow for additional housing, additional home ownership opportunities, and additional flexibility in that sense. Here's a side-by-side comparison. In this case, the SRC2 zoning district, so the next step up in intensity from SRC1 on the previous slide, kind of gives you an example here of the proposed changes. So relatively modest, a slight reduction in the lot area, a slight reduction in the the required lot depth in order to meet that lot area at the minimum lot width. And then a 5-foot reduction in the rear yard setback. We found that this would potentially allow for additional lot splits and provide some additional flexibility. So here's an example of a 20,000 square foot, so just under half an acre corner lot in the SRC2. This is not an unheard of size for a lot in this district. There are many examples throughout the city in the SRC1, SRC2 of lots that are this large. And this is kind of showing a potential subdivision of that lot into four lots, so 3 additional lots that would be allowed by by this change. As you can see, with only 100 feet of depth and 50 feet of width, they would meet that minimum lot size within SRC2. Under current code, they would be limited to only do 3 subdivided lots. So just an example of how a small change in lot depth and lot width and rear yard setback can result in additional opportunities for subdivision. Another example of where these opportunities may present themselves is in what the zoning code calls a deep residential lot, potentially more commonly known as a flag lot. We had a previous proposal that you all saw back in July that allowed some additional flexibility for flag lots. It reduced the width of the flag pole, if you will, the access to the rear lot. It used to be 30 feet required, now it's 10 feet. Those changes went through back in July. And so these are something of a companion to that because if you had an existing lot that was the minimum width or close to the minimum width for SRC1, you could now subdivide off 10 of that for the flag lot pole, as it were. So allowing that additional flexibility to potentially have these more creative ways of creating more housing, more home ownership opportunities, more fee simple lot development. So this map that's up on the screen now is one that you have seen before. This is from the July changes that I mentioned before that made it a little bit easier to subdivide lots. But it shows kind of where those lots were located, that lots that met the sufficient depth, area, width to potentially be divided. As you can see, they're concentrated in some, few areas. They're somewhat around the city, but mostly in a few areas that have pre-existing large lot characteristics. And so under the previous changes, we estimated that about 3,800 lots could be eligible. And that's just a very rough estimate based on the size of the lot, the depth, the width, the area. It doesn't take into account the location of the existing house or, any easements or other natural features that might prevent that lot split. So it's not that granular, but it's sort of a general idea. That there may be about 3,800 lots that would have benefited from the previous changes. And then under the current changes that are proposed before you, you can kind of see the additional areas of the city that might benefit from this. And there would potentially be up to 6,300 properties with these new changes. So not a major change by any means, but certainly unlocking the ability for some additional lots to be subdivided to create some additional housing and also to spread that maybe across more areas of the city than were previously included. So another thing that this proposed change would do is to allow for reduced setbacks for alley-loaded structures. In some districts, it would be a reduced setback just for a garage projection. In other districts, it would be for the house in general. I put up this on the screen. This is an example of a relatively newer neighborhood on the southwest side of Madison that was built with TRC3 zoning, which is one of our conventional zoning districts that already has this exception built in. So within TRC3, you can already do an alley-loaded garage like that. And so the proposal here is to extend that exception to other zoning districts. We feel it would provide some additional flexibility for newer neighborhoods that are coming in. They wouldn't have to choose one of the few zoning districts that currently allows this exception. They could develop under different zoning districts, and it also would encourage or allow for a more diverse mix of housing types, including townhouses, or what the zoning code calls single family attached, that take access from an alley. That's a housing type that we've heard feedback from the public and from developers that we want to make easier to build, that people want and are having trouble finding in Madison. So for that reason, hopefully this change could provide that flexibility to allow a more diverse group of housing types. So the second change that's on the agenda before you deals with the height transitions or the step down, step back requirements. You might hear them referred to as. And this is something that is existing in the zoning code now, only in areas where commercial, mixed use, or employment districts immediately abut a residential zoning district. So it is not related to the use of the property, only the way the property is zoned. So you could have a residential building in a commercial district. You could even have a commercial building in a residential district in some cases, such as a library, a church, a school. The use is not affected. It is the zoning district. So where property lines of those two districts abut, there are currently under current code requirements that the commercial, mixed use, or employment district, the building on that side, start a step back at 25 feet or 2 stories above the side or rear yard setback. And I have some graphics that will maybe make that a little bit clearer, since this is somewhat technical as a zoning code requirement. So here's some examples in the real world of that step back requirement and how it's sort of been implemented. This is one off of Regent Street. As you can see, it's a side yard of the commercial district, which is this newer building here, adjacent to the residential district to the left. It's actually the backyard of the residential district, so there's parking area and a fence, and it's not immediately adjacent to the building, but there is still, since it abuts at the property line, that setback or step back requirement, is still required. Here's another example off of Monroe Street. So showing the building stepping down to 2 stories alongside the residential area. And here's a mid-block example on East Johnson Street on the near east side. Kind of giving you an example of that. So this is the way that the code is currently written. So on the left, you'd have the commercial or mixed use or employment district, and on the right, you'd have the residential zoning district. So that step back is taken from 25 feet above the rear or side yard setback line. So let's say that the commercial district has a rear yard setback requirement of 20 feet. You would take the grade at that point and go up 25 feet, and any building that is, I should say, then you would also go back at a 45-degree angle. So every foot of height would require a step back of a foot from that line. And any portion of the building within that would not be permitted except by conditional use. And so, as the Plan Commission, you have seen conditional uses come before you for exceptions to this. The proposed changes here would maintain that exception. So you would still be able to get a conditional use to exceed the height transition. So under the current code, that limit is at 25 feet. The point at which the height transition starts is at 25 feet. But even in our lowest intensity residential districts, so our SRC1s, our TRC1s, the height limit is 35 feet. So you could conceivably have a building just across the property line that is 35 feet tall, and yet we're taking the step back from 25 feet. So what this proposal would be, and here's actually an example of a conditional use that you recently approved for a property on University Avenue. I share it just because it's a helpful cross section, I think, of showing where this step back would be required and the extent of the building that is within it. The lower dashed line is actually where that step back would be taken from, because you take it at the grade at 20 feet from the rear yard setback. For this building. So this is an example that came before you that was approved, but kind of showing you how much of that building would be within the step back. So the proposal here is to synchronize the required step back height with the maximum height allowed in the adjacent district. So I mentioned those lower intensity districts that have a 35-foot height limit. We would propose to allow 35 feet on the commercial side as well. So basically, the portion of the building that's at the setback could be as tall as the building that's on the other side of the property line. And then we would take the step back at a 45-degree angle from there. It would also change with, and here's an example of some additional areas of the building that could be allowed by this change that right now would require a conditional use exception. That height would change in response to the maximum height allowed in the adjacent district, whatever that may be. So in some of our higher intensity residential districts, we have taller height limits like this one, 52 feet. So even under current code, even if you had a residential district on the neighboring lot with a 52-foot height limit, you would still take that step back requirement starting at 25 feet above grade at the setback line. So those upper 2 stories, even though they would be allowed in the residential district next door, would still be required to have a conditional use to as an exception to the height limit now. So our proposal is to synchronize those height limits so that if it's 52 feet is allowed on the residential side, that's where we would take that height transition step back measurement from. And then our final code change here, number 3, is to allow accessory dwelling units to contain more than one, to contain 2 dwelling units. There's not a proposal here to amend the size or the height that is allowed for an accessory dwelling unit. That would remain what it was when as previously allowed. It's just that using that box, as you will, that allows that size within that box to split that into 2 units, not just the single family 1 dwelling unit that's allowed today. So here's an example of sort of the blue and the orange showing side-by-side duplex as an accessory dwelling unit. This could be done in a number of ways. Any potential layout that meets the code requirements for setbacks and height and maximum size. So here's an example of a garage on the first floor with the units up on the second floor. Here's an example of a side-by-side duplex with an attached garage. One thing that this code change would also do is it would exempt accessory dwelling units from the total detached accessory building area. Again, another somewhat technical thing in the zoning code, we have a maximum allowable total square footage of accessory buildings. So that would include sheds, carports, detached garages. And under current code, it also includes accessory dwelling units. You're limited to 1,000 square feet without obtaining a conditional use. So for example, if you had a 10 by 10 shed, 100 square feet of shed, you would be limited to 900 square feet of an ADU. But if you didn't have a shed, you could take the full 1,000 square feet. So this proposal would be to not count the ADU square footage towards that maximum allowable total accessory building square footage. So the timeline here, we had a housing policy committee meeting, considered these changes on September 25th. There was a public meeting, community meeting on September 30th. We're here at the Plan Commission today. I will note that I believe there was some confusion on our previous presentation. I believe it said that the Common Council meeting would be the next one, but or the following one, but it is planned to be at the introduced and voted on at the next Common Council meeting, October 7th, tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. With that, I will open it up for questions and comments. Thanks.
Thanks, Jacob. Do we have registrants on item 12?
We do, Chair.
Okay, so we will, so Jacob, don't go away. We will open our public hearing and walk through our registrant testimony. Thanks.
Okay. Our first speaker is Mark Alexander of District 19, representing the Highlands Community Association, registered in opposition and wishing to speak.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
We can. Thanks. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm a resident of the Highlands community. and one of our association board members. And just to be clear, our opposition is to our zoning district being included under the first of the three changes that was just described. So the Highlands is a 120-ish acre neighborhood. It was actually designed by a renowned landscape architect in 1912, who was also involved in Madison's villas and Tenney Parks. He was also involved in some of Lincoln Park and the Morton Arboretum in Chicago. And based on my understanding, our neighborhood is the only area in the city with the TRR zoning designation. And this zoning designation was created by your predecessors around 40 years ago to preserve what's really a unique open space, landscaping, and naturalistic design of this neighborhood. So I'd like to highlight three main points. One is during the West Area planning process, the city initially proposed rezoning TRR to SRC1. And this was given thorough review and much public comment, and the decision was ultimately made to not alter TRR and instead maintained our zoning. The second point is that 75% of our community in 2024 signed a private covenant, which was then filed with the county to essentially preserve existing TRR zoning restrictions for their properties for 40 years. And for the overall community, 90% voiced support to preserve our current zoning. So our community opposes the proposed zoning changes for just the TRR zoning district. We are in support of all the other initiatives that Commissioner Moskowitz just described. And so we're just requesting that, given the unique nature of this area of the city, that our zoning district be removed. Thank you for listening and being open to our feedback.
Thanks for coming out, Mark.
Okay, our next speaker is Barry Pace, also of District 19, registered in opposition and wishing to speak.
Barry, welcome. I think your mic is live.
Barry, you're unmuted on our end.
How about now? Can you hear me?
There we go.
Okay,
Yes, we can.
thank you. Sorry about that. So yeah, thanks for a little bit of time here. And I don't have any new points that Mark hasn't already mentioned, but I do want to underscore a couple of the points. As Mark said, a little bit more than a year ago, rezoning the Highlands was taken up as part of the West Area Plan and the Planning Commission work in that area. And as Mark said, there was a lot of discussion, a lot of input, and for good reason, I'm sure, the Planning Commission decided to drop the Highlands from that rezoning. I don't know exactly what their reasoning was. Maybe it had to do with the tree canopy. And here in the Highlands, we have exceptionally high tree canopy. And I know that's an important goal for the city, is to increase the tree canopy. Maybe it was the historical nature of the Highlands, but whatever the reasons were at that time, the Planning Commission decided not to rezone the Highlands. So I have to ask the question, what's changed? I don't know what's changed. One of the things that have changed here in the Highlands, as Mark pointed out, there is a private covenant in place. It'll be in place for the next 40 years, such that 75 out of the approximate 100 lots in the Highlands cannot be modified. And the covenant basically keeps in place the existing TRR zoning. So you're left with about 25 lots in the Highlands that should the zoning change, those owners could actually take advantage of the new zoning and modify their lots. It was also mentioned about the historical nature of the Highlands, and I want to underscore that point. This landscape architect, whose name was O.C. Simmons, he was contemporary of Frank Lloyd Wright. Most of the work he's done is in the National Register of Historic Places. For example, Tenney Park is in the National Register of Historic Places, and Library Park in Kenosha, Wisconsin. He also designed Vilas, that's not in the National Register, and he also designed the Highlands, which is not in the National Register, but it is his work. And the Highlands is the only community in Wisconsin designed by this person, designed by O.C. Simmons.
Barry, you have about 30 seconds left, just so you know.
Okay, well, we think there's value there. And the last thing I want to mention is that even with the existing TRR zoning, there's opportunity for many landowners to split their lots. And there's opportunity to create about 50 additional houses and approximately 150 more ADUs. And that's with the existing TRR zoning. So those are the points I wanted to emphasize.
Thanks for coming out.
You're welcome.
Okay, we also have Brian Munson representing Viridian Homes, registered in support and available to answer questions, and James Worker of District 7, registered in support and available to answer questions.
All right, thanks. Are there, so I think we're, just to be clear, Megan, do we need to do 3 separate public hearings? Is that okay?
Yeah, we'll do them each separately.
Yeah. All right. So we will, we are in the public hearing for item 12, which is the minimum lot width and lot area and rear setbacks for alley loaded 1-story garages. So are there any questions for our registrants on item 12? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing on item 12 and ask if there are questions for staff from the commissioners. Alder Uguer.
Yes, we heard the registrants from the Highlands Community Association make references to the changes last year, but I wonder if we could have the perspective from staff on the fact that we did, out of a major effort in the West Area Plan to look at all of the opportunities for increasing density, essentially decided not to pursue that between the first version of the West Area Plan and the final version. So there's someone from staff who'd like to tackle how that transpired, because it may not be familiar to all of the commissioners.
So there's a number of staff here that can help answer questions about different aspects of these ordinances, but I think Zoning Administrator Bannon was maybe going to start, and others of us can join in as well.
Yeah. Thanks, Megan. I think maybe I'll just start a little bit with like the code change part, and then maybe Megan and Colin can fill in some of the details on the West Area Plan piece. As far as the code change, you heard a little bit from Assistant Zoning Administrator Moskowitz about kind of the intent of this was kind of modest changes in lot width and lot area. Really pretty much across the board, especially in some of our lower density districts. So TRR is our lowest density district today. SRC1 is the next lowest. And I think the initial proposal with the West Area Plan was really about, do we remove TRR from our zoning code and make those areas into SRC1? What this zoning code change does is really we tried to maintain the differences between the districts. So TRR still is different from SRC1. SRC1 is proposed to have a lot area minimum of 6,000 square feet, where TRR is proposed to have a 10,000 square foot lot minimum. That's really kind of across the board. We're thinking about maintaining the structure of the code as it exists today, the differences between the zoning code districts, while allowing some additional potential lot divisions.
And I'll add, specific to your question about what the West Area Plan included, in talking with the team that led that project, do you understand that in an early draft of that plan, the neighborhood was one area of the West Area that was recommended for proactive rezoning. Typically in our area plans, there's a fairly small number of areas that are recommended for proactive rezoning in order to support things like consistency with our comprehensive plan goals or our future land use categories and the recommendations related to those. Ultimately, this was not included in the final draft, just based on public feedback related to concerns about that. So ultimately, I don't think from a staff perspective, we had a lot of very specific details about that removal of that, other than just hearing a lot of public feedback. I'll note when we were looking at that recommendation, while the TRR district is what we consider to be a conventional district in the kind of sense of the code's structure and how we use it, it is a pretty unique district and applies just to this one neighborhood in the city. In the purpose statement of the district, it actually specifies that it's a district that shouldn't be used for new neighborhoods. And so from when we were looking at kind of how we think more holistically about the city's zoning and how it pairs with our future land use recommendations, we thought about bringing this neighborhood, originally recommending bringing this neighborhood into a district that is more widely used in low density areas of the city to implement those comp plan goals. The commission may be familiar with some recent discussions that we've had about the planned development kind of zoning districts and how some of the limitations of those zoning districts can mean that other policy choices that you and the Common Council make over time that would make adjustments to how lots could be divided or what could be created can have a limited effect in those districts because they are unchangeable when we amend the base code. So as we were putting this package together, we wanted to make sure to present some changes that would be in the spirit of what this ordinance was trying to do citywide, so that the TRR district didn't also kind of remain frozen like a PD might, but ultimately would allow you, as Katie said, to consider changes that are appropriate in that context and location that help you maintain that district as well. So ultimately, I think it's up to the commission if you feel like you want to include any changes to this district at this time.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Katie. As I've communicated with all of you, when we get to, after we make a motion to move this forward, because I think we should, I think it's a very good change for the city. I will be moving for an amendment to remove the changes specifically for TRR for some of the reasons you've heard. And we'll see if that has any traction or not. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Alder Gare. Other questions for staff on item 12? And if not, are we ready to entertain? Yes, Megan.
I just want to see right before we vote if Katie could also just clarify, we're voting on a substitute tonight. So the sponsors of this have introduced a substitute, and I was just hoping she could specify what those are, what the changes are.
Yes, thank you, Director Tuttle. Good idea. So we did make a few, I would say more minor changes as part of this substitute, specifically related to 3 zoning districts, TRR, or I'm sorry, we were just talking about TRR, TRU1, TRU2, and TRP. That would allow for reduced setback for alley single family attached lots. So those are, again, townhomes is what typically would be called, but in our zoning code, it's single family attached, to have a lesser rear setback that wouldn't just be limited to a 1-story attached garage. So what we realized as we were talking with folks about this is that in these smaller lot, higher density districts where we're trying to encourage more townhouse development, that was really limiting in using the lot in the best way and thinking of a really efficient design, both from a site planning perspective and from a townhome design, to have it limited to just a garage that's a single story. Often you're going to want to have some living space above that garage as well. So this code change that allows that reduced rear setback for an alley loaded single family attached lot to not just be limited to a garage, an attached garage. It could have living space above it as well. And there's a small code correction, and that a reference said CA below, and it actually should see B below. So that was corrected as part of this. The The TRP district is a little bit different than the TRU1 and TRU2 district, just in that it's a planned district, which really can have a wide variety of uses, including single family attached, these townhomes. And so the same changes made across the board in these 3 districts for that use.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. All right. I think, again, I think we may be ready for a motion on item 12. Alderfield.
Thank you, Chair. I will move that the Plan Commission forward Legistar 89916, amending Chapter 28 to reduce minimum lot width in area in certain zoning districts and reduce the rear setback for alley-loaded one-story attached garages, the substitute version, to the Common Council with a recommendation for approval.
Thanks, Alderfield. Commissioner Wisniewski? Second the motion. Thank you. Is there any further discussion or comments on the motion on the table? Alder Uguer.
As promised, I'm going to move an amendment to the substitute to remove the changes to the TRR zone. And I think I want to keep a copy of this recording, since it may be the only time anyone has ever or ever will hear me propose an action that doesn't increase density within the Beltline. But for the reasons that were discussed here tonight, I want to make that, and I'll have a few other comments if it gets a second.
Thanks. There's a motion to amend the underlying motion. Is there a second on the amendment? Commissioner Heck? Thank you. So we, I guess, would you like to speak to the motion to amend, Alder Uguer? We'll have a vote on that before we go back. Yes.
Yes, please, Chair. I'll just add a little bit of detail. Those couple here who may remember some of the discussions in the West Area Plan, there's a fair amount of emotion on a number of the issues. This actually did not generate a lot of emotion. You heard 2 of the speakers tonight from the Highlands. It was a fairly straightforward discussion. They made their points in a civil matter. They did take some action with legal assistance last year to agree among 75% of them that they would not, any of them, undertake any actions that would allow more subdivision than currently allowed under the TR ordinance, as was explained. I think a couple of, at least one of the other items that were discussed when I was discussing this with staff at the time that was assigned to the West Area Plan, that we noted that due to the placement of many of the homes, as well as the shape of the lots, even things like flag lots were not easily achievable, so that the number of the actual opportunity to subdivide and achieve some greater density in these very large lots was fairly small. I think that played a role, as well as the consideration of the very unique historical value. That's basically the thing I wanted to add.
Thanks, Alder Uguer. Other comments or discussions on the proposed amendment? Commissioner Wisniewski.
Thank you, Chair. I respect where Alder Uguer is coming from, and I understand the position that he's in. But when I saw his communication about this, I was reminded of a quote by Chuck Marone of the Strong Towns action, where he talks about, the harm we see in build and no build zones, and that a guiding principles that we should do is no neighborhood should experience sudden radical change, and no neighborhood should be exempt from change. And, with that mantra in mind, I appreciate where it's coming from. I think there's a covenant in place, and so, that protects it already. I think it's also limiting property rights for those who didn't sign the covenant, and I would not be supporting the amendment.
Thanks, Commissioner Wisniewski. Alder Glenn.
I think there was a really great point put up, and so I just decided to look in when someone on here had called in a public comment, and of what is, 40 years ago, there was this idea of these lots and why they were developed and what has changed. And so I just decided to see what has changed. And I think 100,000 people of population is a big change of what happened over the last 40 years. And we're growing, and we know we're growing. And so I also respectfully, as my chairmate in council, respect always when Alder Uguer is, because he digs in and he looks in and he really is one of the more balanced. All of us are balanced. That wasn't fair. But when he brings something up, usually there is something substantive behind it. So respectfully, I will also not be voting for the amendment.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Are we ready to call we'll hear from Commissioner Heck. Thank you.
Thanks. I just wanted to pipe in briefly. I've thought this through, and I think that the last two commissioners who spoke said it well. Well, I guess one commissioner, one alder. And I struggled with this, and honestly, I understand entirely what the public commenters had to say and what their perspective was, but I guess the modern way of saying this is cringe. And I hope that they can understand the perspective of also of those of us who aren't going to support Alder Uguer's amendment. Thanks.
Right. I think we'll call the question on the proposed amendment, and Megan, if you would do a roll call vote on this one.
Okay, so the motion is to remove the TRR elements from this proposed recommendation and substitute. Alder Field?
No.
Alder Glenn?
No.
Alder Uguer?
Aye.
Commissioner Bazine?
No.
Commissioner Heck?
No.
Commissioner McCahill?
No.
Commissioners Sanders and Solheim are excused. Alternate Wisniewski?
No.
Okay, the motion fails.
All right. Thanks, everyone. So we have an underlying motion to recommend approval for item 12 to council. And I guess I'll ask if there's discussion on that motion. And if not, we will call that one to a vote. Commissioner Wisniewski.
Thank you, Chair. Not much discussion, just thank you to staff. I know that these changes seem really small from our end, but I know that there's a whole lot of work and pouring through lots of code and doing that. So your efforts are greatly appreciated and don't go unnoticed, so thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Wisniewski. Alder Lankella, welcome.
Thank you. I just wanted to, first of all, I want to thank all of your volunteer time here. You have a lot of experience and great minds, and I'm the main sponsor for this item here. That's why I really appreciate everybody reviewing it, and then I'm happy to see the comments from the public as well. I totally understand Alder Ugair's points there too. Again, at the same time, Alder Glenn's point about how we were continuously growing and we need to work on this, and I really appreciate all your time, and thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's call a vote on, oh, sorry, looked like there was a hand up, but
I think it was somebody taking their hand down. It made all the videos move around. So
that sounds good too. All right. So we'll call a vote on item 12, and I'll ask if there is objection to unanimous approval for item 12. Seeing none, we'll record that as approved. And I would then be looking for a motion. Well, we would actually, we need to open the public hearing for item 13, right?
Yep. We'll move on to item 13.
All right. So item 13 is 89917, amending chapter 28 to update the step down rules. And we do have registrants, it looks like.
We have one registrant, Don Lindsay of District 12, registered in opposition, but is not wishing to speak. And that's all I see this evening, Chair.
Okay. Thank you. So we'll open the public hearing and close the public hearing on item 13. I'm sorry, we'll open the public hearing, ask if anyone has questions for Mr. Lindsay, our registrant. And seeing none, we will close the public hearing on item 13 and ask if you have questions for staff on item 13 on the step down changes. There's no questions for staff. We'd be looking for a motion on this item. Alder Glenn, thank you.
They all do it so much better than me. That's why I like being second. But
you're doing great.
Used to doing it. Yeah. So I moved to. This is a referral to council also, right?
Yep, with a recommendation whether to approve.
Yep. Move to refer to council with a recommendation of approval by Plan Commission to update the existing step-down rules for larger buildings when adjacent to residential district in Chapter 28.
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah, it's good. Second, Commissioner Wisniewski. Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on item 13? All right, so we'll call a vote. We'll move that to a vote. And I'll start by asking, is there any objection to unanimous approval for the motion to refer with recommendation for approval? All right, seeing none, we'll record that motion as passed unanimously. And now we will go to item 14, Legistar 89918. And these are the Chapter 28 proposed amendments to allow detached accessory dwelling units to have 2 units and not be included in maximum permitted use accessory structure size. Commissioner Wisniewski.
I'll try my hand at making a motion.
1 second.
We got to wait and see. I think we may have a registrant for there too. So I'll open the public hearing on that one, Megan, and you can read us through it.
Yep. Great. I love the efficiency that we're moving. Sorry to butt in there, Commissioner Wisniewski. All right. So we do have just one registrant, Don Lindsay from District 12, registered in opposition but not wishing to speak.
All right. Do any commissioners have questions for our registrant on item 14? And seeing none, I will close the public hearing on item 14, and then ask if there are questions for staff. And now if there are no questions for staff, I think it might be time for a motion. In case Commissioner Wisniewski wants to get back in. Thanks.
Okay, I'll jump back in. So yeah, it's my first time here to doing this. So I recommend approval to council for item 14, Legistar 89918, amending sections to allow detached accessory dwelling units to have 2 units and not be included in the maximum permitted use of accessory structure size.
Thank you. Alder Glenn, you got in there first with the second. Thank you. Is there any discussion on the pending motion? And if there is not, is there any objection to unanimous approval for item 14? All right, seeing none, item 14 will be approved unanimously. And now we will go to item 15. This is Legistar 90056. And that is amending the conditional use scope of approval. And I think we continue to have our A-team here to walk us through these proposed changes. And Megan, I'll give you the floor.
Okay, I'll start this off and invite Matt Tucker and Katie Bannon to jump in if they'd like to add anything. So the proposed change that's in front of you would increase the initial approval timeline for conditional uses from 2 years to 3 years, maintain our current allowance for the director to approve an extension for up to 1 year after that approval has expired, and allow for an additional 1 year to be approved. This would also specify procedures for if the director and the alder do not agree about granting that extension, for that to be reviewed by the Plan Commission. And finally, this code change also clarifies that extensions require a $100 fee as part of that application. Happy to answer questions after we open the public hearing about the purpose of this, but just briefly, understanding that in 2022, we made a code update that made some modest changes to these approval timelines, which is what we have in place today. And we're again bringing some recommended updates to you, ultimately with the goal of helping projects that we've approved navigate the complexities that they are experiencing and ultimately get built. We know that we need to maintain a balance between projects advancing and keeping these projects kind of current under changing codes and regulations. But we're finding that new and continuing complexities are impacting some projects in real time and have impacted some other projects as well in recent months. These include things like project funding, dealing with the kind of overall complex and changing landscape related to assembling project financing, particularly for projects that require land use approvals early and as a prerequisite to obtaining funding. The provision of certain types of infrastructure and the complexities that come with infill and redevelopment sites, navigating the interplay between city processes and sometimes state and federal ones, and a host of other factors. So we're ultimately recommending that we update these approval timelines and extensions, as the ones that we have in place today are currently frequently granted. And we know that we have some other projects on our radar that are actively navigating the development of all of the work that needs to go into bringing a project to fruition, but are still experiencing some complexities. And so we want to bring this forward for your consideration.
And Megan, just to confirm, I think I know the answer, but to confirm, this is a code or an ordinance change, so it would have to go to council after we.
Yes, this is an item that we would be making a recommendation on to the city council. This would change the scope of approval for conditional uses within chapter 28 within our zoning code.
Thanks.
I'm happy to answer additional questions after I read the registrant list.
All right. So we'll open the public hearing. And Megan, if you can lead us one last time through our registrant list.
Okay. We just have one registrant on this item, Elizabeth Rydell of Milwaukee, registered in support, but not wishing to speak.
All right. Thank you. Any questions from the commissioners for our registrant? All right. Alder Yeager, thank you.
Yes. Question for Ms. Rydell. I wonder if you would be comfortable sharing, since I know, and we spoke recently about this, but if you would share why this is a rather imminent issue for a particularly large project that the city has been working very hard to accomplish, but is very complex from a financial layering approach.
It actually does not look like the speaker is present on the Zoom meeting.
Oh, okay.
She may have overstated her availability to answer questions, but maybe we can share some of that background in the discussion portion. So I will close the public hearing and offer opportunity for questions for staff. Alder Uguerra, thank you.
Yes, I just, since Ms. Rigel was not here, I think it might be Administrator Tucker who would be most familiar with this, or perhaps Cullen Punt, but I think it would be useful for the commissioners to realize that this is a very imminent, let's call it, opportunity to pass this tonight, and so it can be dealt with tomorrow.
Sure. I can take a shot just to get started. Good evening, everybody. There's kind of like a variety of projects. There's a number of projects that we've been working on that have been stumbling up against the deadline date. And as Megan kind of mentioned, we kind of have been looking at this and kind of dealing with this challenge, but there's one in particular project that involved the subdivision of land, the construction of roads, dedication of right-of-way, extension of utilities, a relatively complex financing package that does include also some city TIF that took quite a while to sort. And that is a project that's struggling with the deadline date, to be honest. It's one of these ones that is bumping up against this thing that we continually see and kind of have to watch and remind our customers of that's coming with their approvals. I think that's the example you're speaking towards, Alder Uguerra.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that we've seen a number of projects that maybe have experienced challenges with any one of those factors that I mentioned. We had a referral on our agenda tonight that I think is one of those projects. And the project I think that Ms. Rydell was registered in favor of was really experienced all of those factors that we've mentioned. It's just kind of a complicated layer of making a project a reality in those circumstances, but certainly not the only one. And I think we have seen and heard from folks about first kind of coming out of the COVID era concerns about supply chain impacts and the uncertainty that the market presented during that period of time, and seeing more of a period of sustained challenges related to assembling project financing, shifting landscapes around the cost of building materials and infrastructure provision. Sometimes there are actually changes in state and or federal programs that have impacted projects kind of midstream, and honestly just making it through all of the city's required processes. So these are a number of factors that we're seeing.
Just a follow-up question. Would it be accurate to say that with regard to financial complexity, that in particular tends to happen when we've got multiple layers, partly put forward by the state or the cities, or using tax credits so that we can get the maximum amount of affordable units in a project that is particularly problematic and can lead to this timeline problem?
Yeah, I think that the way that the city's processes work in coordination with some of those programs can present some challenges. Specifically, applicants that are seeking funding through WIDA for tax credits for affordable housing need to come to the city early in that process in order to obtain essentially a green light from us about the appropriateness of the land use itself. And then the applicant teams have to do a lot of work following that to assemble project financing, sometimes coming from multiple sources. So certainly we've seen this impact some projects that are both seeking those public sources of support for project financing, but in some cases also having to do some private fundraising as well.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Holly Gare. Other questions for staff on this item? All right, seeing none, I guess I'd be looking for a motion. And again, this would be a recommendation to council. Alder Gare.
Yes, I move that we recommend approval to council for the proposed changes to Chapter 28 dealing with conditional use scope of approval with regard to timelines and exceptions.
Thanks, Alder Gare. Alderfield, second. Thank you. Any further discussion? And seeing none, is there objection to unanimous approval for this item? All right, seeing none, we'll record it as approved. Thanks everybody for being here to help walk us through these amendments. Appreciate it. So now we have time on our agenda for member announcements, communications, or business items. If anyone has anything to share, Alder Gare. Oh, well, I see you took yourself off mute. But yeah, all right.
I just took myself off mute before I raised my hand. Just want to make a note, alders have seen this, but I'll put this more widely. Just want to publicize that on October 21st in the evening, with the help of planning and others in PCED, that I'll be doing a public information meeting that's focused on how it's the whole accumulation of actions that we're taking here at the Plan Commission and the Council, our area plans, things that we're doing with regard to incentives and so forth, and looking specifically at the area between Westtown Mall and what was Westgate, and between Mineral Point and down to Schrader Road, as an example of how the accumulation of these things is by our latest look, bringing forth in the last 5 years and going forward about 2,800 new housing units. So we'll be looking at how that all happened and how these things add to each other, because we ordinarily tend to see our public media deal with one interesting project and gets a lot of attention, and others that get almost no attention. And similarly, some of the things that we put forward, changes to ordinance and resolutions, get a lot of attention, some get very little. But when you look at the accumulation of all of these things that we've done since the announcement of the Housing Forward goals, that in fact, in various areas of the city where we're particularly targeting activity, it's really happening, and it's happening in a big way. Thank you.
Thanks, Alder Gare. Anything else? Commissioner Wisniewski.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to mention October 19th to the 25th is Madison Housing Week. And so you can go to madisonhousingweek.org for a full schedule of all the events. There's something happening every day that week, an afternoon Zoom and then an evening session.
Cool, thank you. Anybody else? All right. I'm excited that we had member announcements and communications tonight. That's always good. But we'll move to the Secretary's report, and Megan will give you the floor.
All right, thank you. I wanted to start by just mentioning one item. I think this actually maybe should have been shared under commissioner items, but tonight on your agenda, you talked about 3 zoning amendments that were coming to you underneath the Housing Forward initiative. I also just wanted to note that for those of you who may not have been able to attend the mayor's press conference when those 3 zoning code changes were announced, we also gave a really brief update on forthcoming ordinances that we expect this fall as well. The details are still coming together, but one of those that is on our radar is to introduce some updates to our TOD overlay. Specifically to help support more missing middle housing options and to help address some of the kind of conflict with certain auto-oriented commercial uses within this zone and the sort of primary goals of the district. So more details to be forthcoming when those get introduced to the council and ultimately will make their way to you for discussion and a recommendation. Also on your agenda tonight is a list of upcoming matters. We unfortunately did not include the agenda for the October 16th meeting, so I'll just briefly share, as the chair noted, will be a full agenda. We will be joined by the school district superintendent and a number of staff from the district that are involved in some of the district strategic initiatives to hear about their building for the future work. So I think I mentioned in a previous meeting that this will include some updates on their most recent capital referendum and the work that they're doing to implement the projects that were approved under that referendum, but also some information about looking ahead and how we think about the overall growth of the city in the context of the school district's plans for the future. We will also hear an update from our colleagues in the transportation department about sharing an update on the scope of the work that they're going to be doing related to curb management. I know this is a topic that you all have talked about in the past and had some interest in. We're going to hear from our team and have a discussion with the staff for the UDC about the updates to the UDC code and get some feedback from you all on a few items as we provide some recommendations for code updates in early 26. And then we want to circle back and give you an update on kind of what direction we're heading in as we prepare to release the draft area plans, following up on our discussion about the general commercial employment and low medium residential districts, future land use categories, I should say, and how we're thinking of approaching those. On your regular agendas for the next couple of meetings, just wanted to flag a few projects. We're going to see 2 multi-unit mixed-use developments on East Wash at our meeting on October 20th, as well as a new proposal related to what has been termed the Leo Living development out at Portage and Hepker. You may remember that there was a proposal related to that project earlier this year that was placed on file. So this is a modified version of that proposal that will be coming your way. And then on November 3rd, there's a couple of items there for you to take a look at, but wanted to flag 139 West Wilson. This is a significant redevelopment right here in downtown that also had been referred a number of times late last year and was ultimately reworked by the applicants, and we're anticipating that coming back to you for discussion at your meeting in November. That's all I have for you this evening, Chair.
Thanks, Megan. Any questions on anything, Megan? Anything from the Secretary's report? All right. Seeing none, I think we're ready for a motion to adjourn. Alder Glenn, thank you. Is there a second? Alderfield, thank you. Any objection to unanimous approval for a motion to adjourn? So we will stand adjourned, and we'll see everybody next Thursday. Thanks.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks.